Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and tonight we're very honoured to talk to Jess Bedford, who has written a wonderful book called Fergus, the Flamingo. It's a children's book, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. She's done a marvellous job. Thank you so much, Jess, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess, everybody wants to know about Fergus. Tell us, how did you create such a wonderful, wonderful character?
I think it all sort of started in isolation here in Melbourne, and I was with my 3 young children all day, every day, which was amazing but tricky at the same time. So I just had an idea. I've always been a writer and always loved to write poetry, but I just had this idea that I wanted to create a book in isolation, and the storyline behind Fergus is very important to me. As I mentioned, I have young kids and I work with kids, and I just think it's a really important message for our young people growing up to just always know that they should always be themselves. They don't have to hide behind their friends or their identities or anything. They really need to just to be themselves. Yeah. And to really shine.
Yeah. So it's again just an element of what the bullying or the peer pressure or things where you're saying they need to be themselves, make choices that are best for them, not just consider everything else happening around them for everyone else to be right.
Exactly. I think a lot of our young people try and fit into these molds that society try and tell them that they have to fit into. And I feel like a lot of our young kids are suffering because of that, and trying to fit these, stereotypes. So I think it's just really important for them to learn at an early age. You can dress however you like, you can be whatever you want to be, and just to really have that support from us adults.
Yeah. And you think that's too, it's important still for parents to remember those things? Like sometimes we grow, we want to forget school, we want to forget being a kid, we want to go, okay, you know what? I've done all that. I don't want to deal with those things in my past. But then they watch your own children going through the experiences and you remember them. Do you think that's important for parents to know and recognise them? And in this sort of story, in this sort of book, have a tool you've created to share and help even parents understand what is happening for children as well again?
Yeah, definitely. I went through a lot of challenges growing up, and I think obviously that made me the person that I am today. And I feel like for me personally as a parent, I feel like it's always best to be open and honest with my kids. And I just think, it's really a good message to send to our young people that, we've sort of been through the hard times as well, but we're always going to be there for you. And we'll just always be honest. Sorry. Can you edit this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Consider it cut, but I actually like the authenticity. So for those watching, I'm not editing. Anyway,
I'm just super nervous.
So when you're writing the stories, the children's stories in particular, you've got a theme, you've got a message, which is important in a children's book. I think that's probably the most success a children's book can have is the right message. Do you also visualize it in the sense of its illustrations, its characterization? So this one is Fergus the Flamingo. So how did you create a flamingo, being, I guess, the construct of them being a herd or a bird in a group? How did you create Flamingo in your mind to tell this story?
I wanted to choose an animal because I feel like kids relate a lot to animals, but I wanted to choose one that sort of hasn't been overdone. So, like a dog or a bear or something like that. So I wanted to choose something that hasn't been too overdone. And I also wanted to choose a pack, a sort of bird in the flock as a pack, because when kids go to school, and they, as I said before, when they go to school and they feel like they have to sort of fit into their peers and into their groups, they can sort of fall behind. So I think choosing the flamingo with his brightly coloured feathers to stand out from the group just sort of sends a message that you can shine no matter, you know, where you are or what group you're in.
Yeah, wonderful. And it was a beautiful book, beautiful colours. So did you trust the design of that book? Did you have to give up a little bit? Because in the writing, you write the story, but you do have to share that element within a children's book with an artist. How did you feel about putting that story with someone else's other creative element? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? How did you find the creative process there?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous, to be honest, because I'm not an artist. I mean, I'm an author and a writer, but I'm not an artist. I can't draw, I can't do anything like that. So to get it from the images in my mind, to get it onto the piece of paper, to then get the illustrator to understand what I was trying to sort of portray. Yeah, I felt like the control was sort of taken away from me a bit, which is quite hard for me to deal with. But yeah, Tess, the illustrator, just got it perfect, and I can't be happier with the illustration.
So for new writers, this is your first book, your first experience in publishing a children's book. What would you share with other writers in this vein, considering it? Like, what would you say some of the traps, some of the ideals to be aware of and to help them, not, I guess, help them enjoy the process as well of publishing, because it is a big step in writing. The writing's the part, then there's the next step. What would you tell a new writer who's looking at it?
I think the hardest step is not the actual writing itself, but it's taking that leap, and just putting your all into it, as in taking that leap to reach out to a publisher or, self-publishing, whichever sort of route you want to go down. But I think for me, the biggest thing was, I've written a book, okay, but is it good, or do I just think it's good because I've written it? Are other people just telling me that they think it's good because, they're my family or friends, they don't want to hurt my feelings? But I think just having that sort of belief in yourself and just taking that big step to find a right publisher. I contacted a couple of different publishers, and I just didn't get the right feeling from some that I heard back from. So when I heard from you, Bradley, I just got, a great vibe back from you, and just felt like I could really trust you and trust the process, and it's all worked out really well.
Thank you. I have that on record with people, by the way. That's quite. But anyway, so no, I'm glad it's been good, Jess. It's been a pleasure working with you to bring this to life. So have your children read this yet? Are you holding that secret back to them, or are you going to show they haven't seen anything yet? Or how have you approached that idea with getting there? They're your first reviewers, really. How are they?
Yes. So I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Oh. So the 4-year-old is my biggest critic. So when I was writing Fergus, I would sort of read it back to him and ask his opinion. Mm-hmm. So he was the first to tell me, like, no, I don't like it, or yes, I like it. But first he didn't like flamingos, but now he loves it. So I read it to him every week or so. And my middle one now, that's 2.5, is more understanding as well. So he loves hearing about Fergus too. And if he sees a picture of him, he always says, Fergus. Yeah. So when the book is actually in my hands and I'm able to read that to them, it's just going to be amazing. And I think it's just going to be a nice feeling to know that I actually created it, and they can be proud of me for creating a book.
Well, we're all proud of you. You've done a wonderful job. And that's the thing. One of the things I liked about Fergus the flamingo, even though flamingos are pink and they have that theme of femininity, one of the things that both you and Tess have created in the story is that it hasn't been gender specific. It's been very, very well written in the way that it's just a pure thing about being an individual, not based on any sex category, but said this is, and flamingos still express that in the way it's drawn and the way it's told, in a very boy and girl will love all the elements constructed in this book. So that's a very, very clever and very good thing that you've done there with that book. So on that note, what was your favourite children's book as a child, if you recall?
I really love the Faraway Wishing Tree. My mum and my grandma used to read that to me quite a lot. So that just brings back some really nice memories. And I've got it up in my cupboard, in my kids' cupboard, for when they get a little bit older, so I can read that to them as well.
That's beautiful. Well done. So what other works coming up for you that you've got in the pipeline for your development? What can we expect for the next editions of children books mastery? Or are you going into the novel? What is your goal?
I don't think novels are quite for me. I don't think I have that that sort of willpower. I don't think I'm that creative enough to come up with a massive novel. I love children's books because I can relate. I love children. I can relate to kids. I'm a big kid at heart. I work with kids. My whole world is kids. So I have also written, excuse me, a children's book on about a first day of school. So my eldest is starting primary school in 2022. So I wrote that with him in mind, but I also wrote it in mind of my nieces and nephews and my neighbours and everyone. So it sort of explains the child's emotions and feelings about their first day of school and how they're scared and nervous to leave their parents, but then what magic awaits them at school. So that's my next one.
You get them excited.
I'm very excited for that one. And I've also written a book on surrogacy. I am going to be a surrogate next year for some friends of mine. So there's not many children's books out there that talk about surrogacy and explain it in a way that children can understand. So that's also in the works for publication too.
Wow, you are very busy. So what do you do when you're not writing books besides creating them with kids? I mean, do you obviously brainstorm and play with the kids and the ideas of things and create themes? And I mean, you must have so much in your mind when you have so much time with children. What do you do with that information, with all those ideas?
What do I do with them in terms of?
I don't know. Do you have a big book? Do you write down all these children book potential?
Yes, just notebooks. I have notebooks all around the house. I love writing things down. So as soon as I get an idea, a character, a theme for a book, I just write it down as much. It's funny, it kind of like Fergus just sort of came out. It just, as soon as I have an idea, it kind of just rolls. And that's how it used to happen when I would write poetry growing up as well.
Yep.
So it's just something that happens quite naturally for me, luckily, when I have an idea. So
yeah. And a lot of people say that children's books are actually quite easy to write. They're a bit dismissive. But what do you find as a challenge in writing a children's book for you?
I think the challenge would be, how am I going to keep the child who's reading it engaged in it? How are they going to keep wanting to turn the page and finding out what's happening on the next page and getting to the end of the book? I think so many times kids, grab a book off the shelf and want to read it, and then they're bored, after a page or two, and they want to move on to the next thing. So yeah, the challenge for me is definitely how I keep the child and even the parent engaged in the book and wanting to keep reading it over and over again.
Yeah, so you construct the story in a very strategic way that way of make sure the flow or story is, do you use a lot of limerick in that, or do you use just a wording preference?
Yeah, I always use limericks. I think that they just make the book sort of flow a bit easier. And I try not to use, language that kids obviously aren't gonna understand. But yeah, I think the way to engage is to, have it rhyme and just sort of put it in the right order.
Yeah. Do you find it exhausts you or inspires you writing? I mean, you've got quite a full day, as you say, working with so many children, to sit down and actually then put yourself into a children's story. Do you find it exhausting? I
love it.
Inspiring?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No, it inspires me. It makes me want to write more. I just, I feel like there's just a passion and a fire in me when I'm writing, and especially when it's something that is close to my heart and, a message that I want to get out to our young people. So yeah, it definitely inspires me. I love it. I've written another 2 as well that I'm finishing editing. So once I get going, I can't stop.
Well, there's a great way to momentatize a career in that. Don't worry. So, so when did you realize that you wanted to write the stories and take the challenge on? I mean, a lot of people write stories and limericks for their own children. They'll play with ideas and little elements, but to take the steps you've taken to put it into public domain and to set up a profile and to become that children author, when did you decide that was the journey for you?
I think for me, writing the poetry growing up was when I was sort of facing a hard time and things like that, and writing would just be my release. And so in isolation, especially, being stuck in a house with 3 young children and not being able to get out and do many things or go to work and stuff, I had the idea of how about I start writing again. And that's when the children's books sort of came to me. And after finishing writing Fergus, I thought, I've always wanted to sort of put myself out there, and I'm pretty good at, putting myself out there and, trying everything I can in this life, because you only live once. So I just thought, why not give it a go, see what happens? The worst that can happen is no one buys my books. Then I'm still where I am today. So
that's right. Let's work on the other one. Let's work on that. Everybody buys your book.
Yeah,
everybody watching, go buy a book. So how do you create your names for characters like Fergus, the Flamingo? Is it just because of the rhyme, or is it because the actual character in your mind is a Fergus? Like, that's a very unique name.
Yes, I wanted something to go with Flamingo, but I thought I love, Fergus, something out of the ordinary, something that's old school, something that's funny, something that'll catch kids' attention. Do
you try to do that with most of your characters, and try to create these elements of even just their name symbolizing something to the child of humor,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because it makes it sort of pop off the shelves, and I think a funny name of a book just catches people's attention and makes them think, oh, I should read this. It sounds pretty funny.
So do you find do you have a lot of friends who are writers? Do you socialize with writers? Do you find that you might work with peers to help brainstorm ideas, or do you just do it on your own? Is it a totally isolating thing? Some writers do, some writers don't.
No, I tend to do it a lot on my own, because I feel like that's when I'm my most creative, and I don't like showing people the work that I've done until I am 100% happy with it. So it's definitely an individual process for me. But in saying that, when I did come out and, say that I was having my first children's book published, I had a cousin and a couple other people reach out to me to say that, oh, we've always thought about like writing a book, and it's really hard and blah, blah, blah. So they were kind of asking for advice too. So good. I think it's good to put yourself out there, and that way you can sort of help other people that are thinking along the same lines.
So the family is supportive. You've got a lot of support from the family helping you with this, and the campaign of getting this out there for you, and so you had good support. Good.
Yes, people ask me all the time, when is Fergus coming out? So my family's definitely on board.
I'm the publisher. I'll take responsibility.
My brother-in-law's already said that he wants to purchase a whole heap and donate them to his local children's like kindergartens and childcare centres and things like that. So that's amazing.
So tell me about what do you perceive success as being a successful writer? What's that for you?
I think for me, it's not about how many books I sell or how much money I make out of it. For me, being a successful writer is knowing that I've put 100% of myself into my book, knowing that I'm 100% happy with the work that I've created, and hoping that my kids and my family are proud of what I've done.
I think they will be fine. Done a great job. And you are successful. You've taken the biggest step available to most writers who don't take the step, believe me. So well done. So everybody watching, Fergus the Flamingo is available everywhere great children's books are sold, online and in stores, libraries and schools. So if your school doesn't have it, or your library or bookstore doesn't have it, get them to get it in for your children and read it. It's a wonderful book, Fergus the Flamingo. Jess, Bedford, thank you for your time tonight, and for talking to us honestly about your book. We're going to look forward to more time with you on other books coming up by the sounds of it. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope you guys enjoy the book. And thank you everyone for watching, and we look forward to more books and more news with you soon. Thank you again. Good night. Thank you.